Great. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jonathan Wilson. I'm Associate Professor in Marketing and Business Research at UEA. I'm also a teaching fellow at the university. So as David was saying, the focus of my talk is on enhancing authentic learning through the use of smartphone videos. So in the next, I suppose, 20 minutes or so, I'm going to talk about my own personal experience of using technology, trying to get to grips with technology right at the start of the pandemic. I guess for many of us, it was sort of a trial and error. I think I tried probably in the region of about 14 or 15 different technologies at some point, and then kind of hit on two for what I'm going to talk about, which is creating short pint-size videos. So learning outcomes. Hopefully by the end of this session, there will be some takeaways. And the first one is the ability to recognize some of the challenges of creating authentic learning environment during the pandemic. So I'm a real advocate of authentic learning, and you'll see how that relates to the videos that I create using smartphone. The second point is just looking at this business of authenticity. So it's a hot topic, and there's a lot of information, a lot of literature on authenticity and authentic learning. So we're going to start off just by looking at some of the definitions and how that's interpreted, and how that fits into the videos that I've created for students. And then the last couple of points is flipped learning. So the videos are very much part of a flipped approach, and you'll see how that works. And I'll talk about the iterative approach that I use in my teaching. And the final part is what I refer to as pint-sized videos. So I've created a series of videos called Pint Size Research for students as part of my market research module. And hopefully the final point here, there are some takeaways for you, perhaps in terms of your own module and your own learning design as well. So what I thought I'd do is start off just talking a little bit about the background to the module that I teach. So this is a final year undergraduate module, which is market research, taught in semester 1. I have 60 students on the module. As it says here, there's a real focus on authentic learning. So what that means is that students do authentic assessment, both formative and summative, but it's not just about assessment. So I try to create an authentic learning environment. And what I mean by that is that students engage in authentic learning both inside and outside of the classroom. And this fourth point here is an illustration of how authentic learning takes place outside of the classroom. So we have a close collaboration with the Chartered Institute of Marketing, and that is the main professional body and Europe's largest professional marketing body. And UEA were actually the first university to establish a marketing club with the Chartered Institute of Marketing. And this brings together practitioners and students at various events, and they work together on real life projects, they network. And this has now been going on for about 4 years. And one of the problems was with the pandemic, we couldn't meet, obviously, in classrooms. So that's something else I had to think about. How do we change what we deliver in the classroom, but maintain the authentic learning outside of the classroom? So what we did was we set up a series of webinars, both the CIM, UEA, and half a dozen other universities that have marketing clubs. And it's been a real success. So the first event, we had nearly 1,500 people attend, and a large number of these students and also marketing practitioners. So I could talk quite a lot about that, but that's not the real focus for today. But it's just there to illustrate that I think a lot of, in terms of authentic learning, a lot of discussion is around assessment, but it's not just about assessment, it's about inside and outside of the classroom as well. And the final point here on my module, synchronous delivery tends to be online lectures. Asynchronous delivery, there's quite a strong focus on the use of discussion boards, together with the pint-sized videos that I've created as well, which we'll go through shortly. So that gives you a bit of background in terms of the module. I've only created the videos for this particular module, but I'm thinking about other modules perhaps for next academic year. So before I talk about the videos, just a little bit on the context and authenticity. So sometimes the terms authenticity and authentic learning are used interchangeably. Of course, they are very similar in the sense that when we look at definitions of authentic learning, a key focus, and I'm sure you're aware, buzzwords that tend to be used, things like real world or real world learning. And this definition from Stein et al. Actually highlights the importance of real world, but also community and community of practice. Similarly, Bozalek also talks about the importance of practice. So when you look at definitions of authenticity and authentic learning, there are key themes that emerge from the literature. And those key themes tend to be around, say, real world learning, community of practice, but also collaboration particularly within the classroom, but also to an extent outside of the classroom. And so when I think about authentic learning, I think about assessment, but I also think about another A, which is association. And that's the collaboration that we have with stakeholders, particularly the professional body that we work with, and some of the organizations that I work with as I'm a former practitioner in marketing. So I looked at the different definitions of authentic learning, came up with my own definition, which is real meaningful tasks and problems students are likely to face in their chosen field of work. You'll notice that it doesn't explicitly refer to real world. It doesn't refer to assessment. I see this definition as perhaps more of an umbrella term, but the key elements of this definition do look at tasks. So students are actively engaging with the subject. And again, that doesn't have to be just inside the classroom, but it will also take place outside of the classroom as well. And of course, with the pandemic, that's been particularly difficult. So a lot of this has had to move to online, trying to adopt the same pedagogy, but in an online format. So let's move on to talk about these videos that I created. So as I said right at the start to David, it has been a rocky road. So like everyone here, I'm sure you had to move from classroom-based teaching to online teaching. And I really wanted to try and adopt the same pedagogy, which is authentic learning in an online format. So I did quite a lot of research around different technologies and looking at some of the different ways that academics do this. And it's interesting, the literature on this, because there's quite a strong focus on the importance of short explainer type videos in order to engage students. So one of the things I tried to do was to come up with a series of videos that were typically 2 minutes to 6 minutes long, but very much embedded within the module. So each week students can see a video that is linked to the lecture content and the online workshop content. And these are posted to Blackboard so students can engage in the tasks, and then we talk about the outcomes in the online workshops. So as a marketer, I've branded the videos as pint size, and I think that works quite well because students straight away understand, okay, pint size means short. So they're not 1 hour, 2 hour lectures. It's something that they can easily access via Blackboard and they can actually look through. So the rationale behind these videos was trying to continue with authentic learning, but at the same time trying to engage students, making sure that the videos were easy to access. Content, I tried to keep it straightforward and linked to the lecture topic that I'd cover perhaps a few days previously within the lecture. In terms of authentic learning, I consider my own interpretation, but also Ril's interpretation. Ril did a literature review on authentic learning studies, which was a qualitative piece of work, which looked at 45 different articles and concluded that real world learning is a key theme that emerges from that, but also a community of learning is another key theme. So the community part was really important. So in terms of going through the videos, we do that within the online workshops. And I'll talk more about this sort of flipped approach in a moment. The other thing I came to realize that it's wonderful looking at different technologies, but it's important to remember that pedagogy drives technology. We shouldn't look at technology, then think about how we're going to teach. Think about pedagogy first, then look at what technology works in relation to that. Apologies, this is a little bit blurry. But so in a way, as I said, as a marketer, I've tried to adopt the same kind of branding, if you like, for each of the video series, which is called Pint Size Research. Each video is 2 to 6 minutes. The way the videos work is that I will cover a particular concept and relate it to a real world task. So for example, as market researchers, students may be given a task to carry out research in response to a research brief. So in market research, there are essentially three key documents, which is the brief, the proposal, and the plan. So the tasks might be related to those real world type tasks that they would do in the workplace. The other thing about the videos as well is that they're also linked to assessment. So the summative assessment is a market research report. Again, that's something that if you worked in market research, you would almost certainly do in the workplace. So there's an authentic element attached to that. And then the definition here from Watters and Gins just reflects, again, the real life problem solving aspect of authentic learning. So I tried to build in this problem solving as well in the short videos. Why 2 to 6 minutes? Well, they're not there to replace lectures. They're there to complement lectures and complement what we cover in the workshops. So they're in addition to that, not to replace them. And as I say, the videos were part of this flipped approach that I do with my students. You'll see how that works in a moment. So this is the process, which I would say is an iterative process rather than a linear process. So first of all, I create the video content. Again, it is in line with learning outcomes. Also, the content relates to what we cover within the module week by week in terms of topic. The videos are then shared with students via Blackboard, so they're easy to access. Some of my students actually have been based in China, so YouTube doesn't work in that respect because they can't access YouTube, so they call all access Blackboard, so there's easy access. The students then complete the tasks that are provided in the video. Then the flipped approach is that we actually talk about the tasks in the online workshops, and I can see to what extent they have undertaken those tasks, and also look at how I might develop the video for the following week. So I must stress that I create these videos on a weekly basis rather than doing sort of a dozen videos at the start of the module, so that the content can be adapted in response to how students are learning. So the next step in the process is going back to creating the next video for the following week. Okay, so how do I create the videos? Well, there's two essential tools. The first one is Apple Clips. So just using my iPhone, download the Apple Clips app, which is free to download. And it was just really trial and error. So I started using Apple Clips, just playing around with it, and then realized actually it's fairly straightforward in terms of creating videos. The other thing about Apple Clips is that you can create live subtitles, which works really well. The app works pretty well also. So in terms of changing or adapting the text, there's not a huge amount of that required if we're using the live subtitles. The other app I use, some of you may be familiar with, I know, is Canva. So I use Canva to create the images and then export those into the app. And then I've then got the visuals that I need. Before I actually start doing all of this, I should stress that I create on paper the frames, or the storyboard, if you like, frame by frame, of what I'm going to use when I create the video. So how long does all of this take? I suppose in the region of, in the beginning, it was around about 2 hours or so for a 5 or 6 minute video, which may seem like a lot, but it does get quicker as you go along. And also I've got the videos which are permanent, they're there, and I can use them perhaps for students, for next year's students. So outside of the session, if you want to, you can scan the QR codes to have a look at the guide of how to use Apple Clips and also how to use Canva. I mean, Canva's great. So if you don't know about Canva, have a look, because there's some fantastic visuals, many of which are free, that you can use in your own PowerPoint presentations, social media, posters. It's a great visual tool. And this is just a screenshot of the videos that I use. So this one is just over 2 minutes and was on the marketing research mix. In Blackboard, I also enable statistics tracking, so I can see how many students are actually accessing the videos. You can see, it's not particularly clear, but also the subtitles as well at the bottom of the video. So how does this compare to like Blackboard or Zoom? I mean, I tried to make them in a way quite informal, and I think that's quite a good thing, because typically in lectures, often we are quite formal in our delivery. So sometimes I'll broadcast from different places or different locations. I don't worry too much about so many ums and so on. I'll just do it. And I think students like that, because they know that the nature of the environment we're in, it's not going to be perfect, and we're not perfect. So it's quite nice to do that as a as a one-off, rather than doing repeat videos again and again to try and get it right. And then we have a screenshot. So the screenshot, again, was from the previous video, which is the marketing research mix. This visual was created in Canva, and you can see the subtitles there. So the students really like the subtitles, because with a short video, they can go back, they can freeze it, they can play it back again. I think that inclusive aspect also works particularly well with international students if they want to go back and recap a particular phrase or sentence. They're quite visual as well. The other thing is there are visual frames like this, but there's also my head talking, so it's not just slide after slide after slide. And then we've got some comments. So I did a little Google Forms survey with students. Just over 50% of students responded. It was quite late in the module, and they were focusing on assessment. But the qualitative feedback is rather nice, and overwhelmingly students were very positive about the Pint Size video series. So we've got a comment here, which is rather nice, to say they enjoyed it, and it helped in terms of addressing the core aspects which were in the lecture. It helped to summarize content. Also, that was another key point. Students generally found them engaging as well. Just a few more comments. So again, I mean, the key words that came out of the qualitative feedback were pleasingly engaging, and students found them useful in terms of supplementing what we cover in the lecture and the workshops, not replacing what we cover in the lectures and the workshops. And I posed a question to them. So the Pint Size Research videos have had a positive impact on my learning. And you can see that overwhelmingly students are in agreement with that. Just over half the students on the module responded. So in terms of reflections, I think looking back, it's been an interesting experience, really quite time consuming in the beginning, but like anything, it gets easier as you create the videos. From the student perspective, I think it has helped largely to keep the authentic aspect in terms of what I used to very much deliver in the classroom. I've tried to make it as inclusive as possible by using cases that are across different countries and different cultures. And of course, the subtitles also helps with inclusivity as well. The videos, again, they're permanent, so they can be used for future sessions. One thing I have done is I've done a couple of training sessions with colleagues. So it's really nice. A couple of colleagues have now taken this on board and started using both Canva and Clips in their own teaching. And hopefully I can do some more of those in the future. As I said earlier, there has been some research on this. So Guo et al. Did some research on MOOCs and MOOC online learning, and actually concluded that short videos are more engaging than longer videos. The other positive is that the videos with a personal touch, where you see the speaker, tend to be more engaging than just having the slides. And again, these explainer videos are not designed to replace lectures, they're there to complement. So I'm interested in the next steps. One thing I think I will do is I'm not going to go back just to classroom teaching, and the university doesn't have plans to do that, but continue perhaps developing these short pint-sized videos, perhaps for other modules, but also perhaps extending them in my own module, rather than having a dozen or so videos, perhaps developing the series to have a greater number. But that's all, time consuming. So that's just about it. I think I'm just over time. Those are the references if you want to have a look. And thank you all for listening. I'm happy to take questions.